Today we have the Chevrolet Bolt electrical vehicle. This is the only electrical vehicle that Chevrolet makes right now. It's a fairly new model. About a couple of years ago it went public in the world, and only the end of 2018 it came into the Gulf countries like UAE. We're looking at very nice lines, very smooth lines, which is what you expect from an electric vehicle. You expect very nice aerodynamics and very smooth lines. The color is beautiful. This is actually my favorite color. This blue is my favorite color. Of course, you see that there's no grille here. It's an electrical vehicle. We don't need a grille for the engine. In general, we're looking at a high-end hatchback. It costs about 175,000 dirhams to buy this Bolt EV in UAE. Maybe a little bit more than the US. There's a little bit of markup here. We're talking about 204 horsepower, 360 Newton meter of torque, which is a very good amount of power and torque for a vehicle this size. It's a bit heavy, 1600 kilograms, but still it feels very nimble. It feels very fast. It's not what you expect from a hatchback. It has a decent amount of space in front and in back. It's fairly comfortable, but maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go through the test.
Now let's take a look at the interior. Of course, the gauges are digital. It's a very nice digital gauge, actually. Nice infotainment screen. The gear shifter is very familiar, like any automatic gear shifter. Nothing different. We have the materials are pretty good, actually, albeit they're all plastics, but they're nice looking plastic materials in the interior. This white gray material is very nice, and it's very nice and to the touch and futuristic a little bit.
So let's start with the straight line performance of the Chevy Bolt EV. It has an enormous amount of torque. You actually 360 Newton meter, and which gives you a very good response from very low RPM, from essentially zero. And it has 204 horsepower, which is in motors terms it should be called kilowatts, which is about 155 kilowatts, which is a good amount of power for essentially a hatchback. It's a big hatchback, it's a tall hatchback, a still hatchback. You don't expect this kind of performance from a hatchback that is not a performance hatchback. All of this is kind of a little bit delayed by the front wheel drive setup, so you essentially get a lot of wheel spin in the beginning when you're pressing it hard. But which is the limitation of this kind of performance on low RPM. But after that, it's pretty solid. It takes you to 100 in a pretty solid manner. So let's talk about the handling of this nice electric vehicle. The Chevy Bolt actually handles very well because its center of gravity is very low due to the fact that the batteries are under you, essentially under the floor of the car. So which has the most weight, and it has a very low center of gravity. You don't get any noticeable body roll in corners, but you're pushing tires that are 17-inch tires, 205s. They're not performance tires. This car can use bigger tires and more sporty tires, and it would get you better handling than that. It can use that. But as far as the dynamics of the car, it holds the road very well, impressively well, and is just limited by the fact that the tires are fairly smaller than you'd want if you want to push it hard in corners. The car is fairly comfortable for a hatchback. You don't get a lot of noise at all. Of course, you don't get any engine noise, but you don't get a lot of wind noise. It's pretty well insulated from the wind. You don't get a lot of harshness because of the electric motor. That's a good thing. But you, even in bumps, it's not too bad. It feels solid. It feels solid for a front-wheel drive hatchback. You don't expect that from a front-wheel drive hatchback. It's a solid car. It's not a flimsy hatchback. I actually like it. It's very comfortable on as far as the suspension and as far as the noise. Having said that, the seats are not very comfortable, especially the front seats. They're narrow in the shoulder and they're generally narrow. It's not a very comfortable seat that you want to take a long trip in. And also they're cloth seats and they're manual seats. They're not power seats, which is something that you do not expect when you're paying this much money for the car. So what's the conclusion? We're actually liking the car. In general, it's a very nice hatchback. It's a tall, large hatchback, but it's still a hatchback. It's still a front-wheel drive hatchback. It's a very nice hatchback. The thing that we have concerns about is that when you compare it to other electric vehicles that have maybe better performance and maybe better features, technology, but this has a 520 kilometer range. That's very good range. That's a range that would not make you nervous about having an electric car. Now, is it comfortable? Again, for a hatchback it is. Is it luxurious? Not really. Is it practical? Yes, it is. It is practical for a mid-level or an entry-level electric car. It's fairly practical. We'd like about a good 20% decrease in price, though. We don't think that Chevrolet priced this car properly, if you will. It's a good step for Chevrolet. It's a good step for GM. I think it would be very helpful for this platform to be disregarded for another one. Meaning that having the system of an electric car is working very well for this car. You need to put it on a small crossover or start putting it on something more of an SUV, something more popular. Hatchbacks are not really that popular, and the fact that it's a hatchback, it's not really driving sales that much. And Chevrolet needs to look at this as a stepping stone and start using that for getting different platforms for the future. But overall, we did enjoy the test drive. It's a good car. It's a nice performing car. It's something that is very enjoyable.